Our United Way spotlight is on Loving Spoonful, and I'm joined by Ayla Fenton, who is an urban agriculture organizer. Welcome, and thank you for coming into the studio.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me what you do, what your job entails.
Sure. So urban agriculture is a relatively new program for Loving Spoonful. We launched it in January of last year, so just over a year ago. We have always facilitated the Kingston Community Gardens Network as part of our work for almost 10 years now, I think, but expanding that to explore other opportunities for urban agriculture is a relatively new area of work for us. And it's part of our transition towards an organizational model more rooted in food sovereignty as opposed to food charity. So what that means is we're trying to build capacity in the community to take control, to build community control over the food system. So that means increasing access to land, increasing skills around food production. Food literacy has always been a big thing that we work on through our community kitchens program and our school programs as well. So urban agriculture is a natural extension of that work, and we're just trying to get more Kingston residents growing their own food wherever they can. And so that includes community gardens, but also includes supporting home gardeners. We know that food can be grown anywhere, backyards, front yards, even windowsills and balconies. So we're trying to connect people with the resources that they need in order to do that. And that includes things like seeds and seedlings and workshops and knowledge sharing and things like that.
Wow. So I've heard of Grow a Row. This is bigger than that, though.
Yeah, it's expanding upon that. So Grow a Row is a program that we run for many years where we accept donations of surplus produce from both local farmers and from home gardeners and community gardeners. So if you are growing zucchini in your backyard and you have an abundance, as tends to happen, we can collect that surplus and redistribute it to where it's needed to alleviate food insecurity in the community. So what we're doing now is trying to expand on that by improving access to land. So we're expanding the community gardens network. Last year we expanded there are several new gardens built throughout the city, but we've expanded that by over 100 allotments. And we're also working to establish more urban agriculture sites that are actually managed by Loving Spoonful staff. So that's our community harvest program. Community Harvest has been around for almost 10 years actually as a grassroots program in North Kingston. So it was started about 10 years ago when the only grocery store in North Kingston shut down, creating a food desert. So at the time, Kingston Community Health Centers and a few other grassroots organizations came together to start the Community Harvest Market, so the idea was to provide an affordable access farmers market in Kingston's North End. And a few years later, they started the Community Harvest Garden, which is at using land owned by a seniors residence on Elliott Avenue. And so the idea is that volunteers and a paid staff person grow vegetables at the Community Harvest Garden, and those vegetables are then sold at the market for very affordable rates. So the whole idea is to improve knowledge about local food production, so engaging community members in the garden itself, and then improving access to those local healthy foods.
It is, because food insecurity is becoming it's a word I never heard of it before. It's just, you'd say people go hungry. But food insecurity goes beyond that. It means you may be eating today, but you're not sure whether you're going to eat tomorrow and how you're going to eat tomorrow. And it has become, and there's all that ripple effect from bad nutrition. You must know all about that.
Yeah, exactly. And food insecurity is really not an issue of the availability of food. It's an issue of income and being able to afford food. And so we know, pre-pandemic, we know that about 1 in 8 households in Canada were food insecure. And we know anecdotally, I don't know that there's research to update this, but we certainly know anecdotally that has massively increased since the COVID-19 pandemic has begun. We've seen a huge increase in demand for services from our partner agencies like emergency meal providers and other social service agencies that provide food. And while there are a lot of emergency food providers for the most vulnerable in Kingston, we recognize that there's also a huge segment of the population that is food insecure but might not go to a soup kitchen, for example, or might not go to the food bank or something like that. And generally speaking, fruits and vegetables are the first things to get cut out when budgets are tight. So we're really working to work with local farmers and work with our own urban agriculture sites to produce those fruits and vegetables and be able to increase access to them at affordable rates.
Last weekend, I paid $4 for one romaine. I really had to swallow hard, but I, have to have my salad, so I bought it. But wow, yeah, like how do people do this? And I say that over and over again when I'm buying groceries. I'm just one person, and I'm noticing it. But okay, so it's great in the summertime as things become, asparagus, and then you got this and you got that, and green beans and all the rest. That's terrific. But then we get this time of year. Mm-hmm. What do you do about that?
Yeah. So that's part of why we are working to develop our own urban agriculture sites instead of just relying on the donations from local gardeners and farmers, because those donations historically have been very seasonal. Yeah. And then we don't have as much to distribute in the wintertime. But by taking control, like increasing our own production, we can plan for that, and we can grow crops to be able to eat year-round here in Canada. It just means in the winter you're eating more things that can be stored through the winter, like lots of cabbage, potatoes, carrots, beets, things like that. And the City of Kingston has recently opened, in partnership with Lionhearts and a few other organizations, a community food redistribution warehouse that's going to really increase the capacity of Loving Spoonful and other food organizations in Kingston to actually be able to store food and distribute it through the winter.
Well, I wondered about that because that's always what comes to mind. Yeah, it's great in the summer when stuff is actually fairly reasonably priced because there's so much of it. But this time of year, I believe I have a freezer, a small freezer, and wow, I sock stuff away. I'm still working on it, what I socked away from last year. So can you do something like that as well?
Yeah, that's what we're working on. We're going to have large walk-in coolers and freezers at the Community Food Redistribution Warehouse that we'll have access to. And there's also something there about there is a cultural shift that needs to happen in terms of eating seasonally and understanding how to eat seasonally. So we're trying to address that as well through programs like our community kitchens, where we can provide those skills and that knowledge about how to eat with the seasons, how to make your food go farther, things like that.
That's a great idea. I'm thinking like sweet potatoes and carrots, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's really, and it's kind of hearty and warm, and it sort of says winter, and that's
exactly.
That's
lots of soups and stews and stuff like that in the winter time, which is what you're craving anyways.
Stick to the ribs kind of stuff. Yeah. You used a term earlier, and I didn't understand it. Food literacy. Tell me what that involves.
So food literacy is about helping people to develop food skills. So this is what I'm talking about learning how to eat seasonally. Part of it is that understanding of like what foods are seasonal, what foods can we produce locally and have at different times in the year. Other parts are things like cooking skills or nutritional information. And so we try to provide that through a number of our programs, including the community kitchens. But the community kitchens, it's beyond just a cooking class. It's also about building community and having participants share skills with each other as well.
Oh, great.
And we try to create spaces for people to share cultural knowledge about food as well, to share recipes and things like that, to broaden your horizons, as it were. Super
idea. A lot of super stuff you do, and I understand the United Way plays a part in what you do. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the United Way has provided partner agency funding to Loving Spoonful for many, many years, for which we are very grateful, because as a charity, it's always challenging to rely on uncertain grant applications and things like that from year to year. So having that stable funding from the United Way for our community kitchens and for our fresh food access programming every year has been enormously helpful. And then the United Way has also funded the Community Harvest program this year through the Community Investment Fund. So that's a fund that's administered jointly by the United Way and the City of Kingston. So that funding is allowing us to expand the Community Harvest program and develop additional urban agriculture sites at other locations through the city and additional community harvest markets as well.
A lot of good reasons to support the United Way.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.